Well, hello. Good afternoon,
Oh, do I
everybody.
know you? Do I know
Hi-
you? Do I know you? It's been so long. I mean,
Oh, don't do me like that. Don't do me like that. We listen. I tried to get a show in before vacation. I couldn't make it happen. Okay, but I is here now. Good afternoon, Dr. El Teddy. How are you, sir?
I am great. I am great. How
How
art
have you been doing? I know you've been really busy. But other than
busy, busy.
educationally, how are you doing?
I'm well. I am well.
That's good. I'm gonna share this out real quick. But I'm glad to hear that. It's summertime, so educationally, um, a lot of stuff is this summer. The buzzword seems to be CRT, and so we're gonna definitely going to get into that a lot. But one thing that I noticed, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to this so I can share the video out.
While you're
Um,
sharing, let me say we were um before the curve. Like we were screaming critical race theory over here before
that is
people
a
were
fact.
paying attention. Before people were paying attention, we were because I remember I first talked about it when Biden got inaugurated. And I think I talked about it one time before that. But
I
when
think we
Biden
talked about it
got
before then. I feel like we were talking about this at the end of last year. I feel like
hmm
you started it on one of the politics of it all,
hmm
and then we picked it up over here. So I feel like we've been talking about this for a minute, honestly,
hmm
and it has become very much a hot button topic type situation. Um, we're going to definitely get into it, and I feel like we're going to continue. Hey Xavier, hey boo. Um, we're going to get into it, and I feel like we going to continue to give you guys the
Better to talk
updates as
about it
it
than
flows
us.
state by state because it is becoming very much just a hot button topic.
I mean,
And
who
it's
better to talk about this than us?
right there you go. There you go. So we're going to talk about it. But before we get into that, there's another conversation that's happening. And I'm going to say that I ain't going to say I started it, but I'm going to say I've been talking about this literally since the day school shut down with COVID, going back to March of 2020. I've been talking about this. And the conversation is, should students get a do over year? And I've been telling parents, anybody who would listen, screaming it from the rooftops, you all need to make sure that you are giving your students supplemental resources, that you are working with your kids, that you are giving them every single thing because they are not going to get everything they need virtually. A lot of school systems were not set up for it. Teachers were not trained in it. Students were not in the right mindset for it. And so you were not going to get what you needed. And so as a result, fast forward a year later, over a year later, fast forward, now we're talking about should kids get a do over year? And there are actually some states and some school systems that are putting some policies in play. um, One of them, I think it was Kentucky, that is even saying we're going to allow students to get seniors to get a gap year and defer their college admission so that they can kind of come back and redo their senior year to make sure that they have everything that they feel like they need. It's not going to be looked at the same as, oh, you were kept back or you were, retained. It's going to look at it as a voluntary situation. And basically, if parents ask for it, a lot of school districts are allowing it to happen. Um, some of the negative side effects to that, I'm gonna say that, and then I'm gonna let you talk, El Teddy. Some of the negative side effects to that they're saying is that it now creates a bubble, almost like a um, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like a traffic jam on the different grade levels because the kids that are supposed to matriculate aren't matriculating, and then the kids coming. I know we're dealing with that at my school. I can speak specifically. We have a large majority of our ninth graders are being retained, and we are struggling with scheduling. with teachers, keeping class sizes smaller, because you still got a full load of ninth graders coming in behind them, but now you have this astronomical number of students that are being retained. So go ahead and speak to it. What you think? How you feel, El Teddy?
Um, I probably am going to be in the minority on this. I don't think, and I don't see how we it can feasibly a do-over year can be done. Um, unless, well, no, I'll take not even an unless. I'm not going to even add that qualifier. Um, Now in terms of seniors, let's be clear. 12th grade, not a whole lot of instruction. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of instruction isn't being done, but students aren't trying to do a whole lot of learning, I should say, 12th grade year. They put all of their efforts into that junior year. Baby, by the time they get done with that junior year, the only thing they're doing senior year is applying, and then they're doing all of their senior activities. So if you're talking about a redo or a do-over for seniors, and it's for something outside of those extracurricular activities, I don't see the point, because most, and that's why a lot of teachers don't want to teach 12th grade anyway, because it's such a horrible year to teach because they're checked out. And almost the entirety of the school year, they're checked out. When you get to other years, though, when you start to, is basically, I'm alluding to kind of what you talked about just a moment ago. When you start to talk about do overs and having kids do that year over, I just don't see how you make it feasible, because the engine is the train is not stopping. You're going to constantly have kids entering, the school system every year. Now, you could say that I would be more inclined to say, let's just have it a year where this year is a wash, not a do-over. But we're not going to do or not that we're not going to do assessments, but the assessment scores aren't going to affect anything. They won't affect school grades or anything. We'll just use them for data purposes to see just where the students are. And even with grading, um make it a wash and say, you know what, social promotion, go ahead, everybody just going, because of COVID and everything, we gonna socially promote everybody, and then go from this school year where most places will be in the building. I am okay with that. Now I think what's what school districts should do is put a lot of weight into offering parents a lot more this summer. This summer was the time to say, let's get some good remediation in. Let's go ahead and offer classes, more classes than we normally would for our students. So if a parent says, yeah, my son or daughter, I know needs more work in math or reading or and so forth. And the studies are showing that the math is taking much harder of a hit than the reading scores, when some of the preliminary data from assessments and stuff have already come out as they begin to disaggregate it. And as I was looking at it, the math scores are getting, hit way harder. They're not that the reading scores aren't getting hit either, but I'm seeing most places saying there's a 30% drop in reading, whereas in math there's up to 50% in the 50s. And so I'm I don't know that you do a do-over year, but you definitely, excuse me, have to have smarter heads in place where, one, you can offer more classes this summer, and two, once everybody does get into the building next school year, that first marking period, or even the first semester, I'm not, maybe not the whole first semester, but that first marking period and a half, you're going to have to be very intensive with regard to making sure you make up not the whole gap, but a good portion of the gap that they might have missed, um, highlighting major points that they need to be remediated on. So that's kind of where I am with it, but I'm not in favor of just a whole do-over year. For
Um,
me.
you're not in the minority as far as I'm concerned, because I'm 100% with you. As somebody who's in the building on the front lines dealing with this, the reality is the majority of us are on the same page. Like everybody lost a year. I mean, give or take here or there, everybody is at the same deficit level. And I would much rather see those resources and see that money be poured into, like you said, after school activities, enrichment classes. You're right, summer school. I know some school districts did do that. And things of that nature. I know that again at my school. I know we were talking at the end of the year about what type of programming and things are we going to put in place. And like you said, looking at those enrichment classes and mandatory type, taking away some of the the BS electives and putting some enrichment classes in those slots. And so I'm just not in favor, because like I said, it creates a bottleneck. That's the word I was looking for. It really creates a bottleneck situation with, again, what we're dealing with. We have 300 or something ninth graders that failed the ninth grade. Well, we got 500, 600 ninth graders coming behind them. What do we do with all of those kids? You know, um, so I personally, I feel like we have to meet the kids where they are. If that means we have to do more, and you know how I feel about testing, but if that means we have to do more testing to see good benchmarks and constantly check those benchmarks throughout the year to get them where they need to be for 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, whatever, I'm here for it. That's just me. So you're
And I
not in
think
a minority with me.
monies need to be put in place. I was speaking with some friends of mine back home, and I know our district back home, they were offering more courses during the summer. And for teachers, depending on how many years you've been in, you got from a 1,200 to a $2,000 stipend as long as you met the requirement, meaning you were at summer school and you missed, I think it was between you could only miss 1 to 5 days of the summer session. But if you did that and you agreed to be in there for the summer program, so that they could offer more, they were offering them between 1,200 and $2,000 on top of their schedule. Same thing with support staff and clerical. They were doing the same things for them. If they agreed to also, but it wasn't as much. I think theirs was like between 800 and 1,000 or something like that. But I do see, and that's what I mean by having monies in place, because money talks. And a lot of these educators want to know, you want me to do all of this extra work? Where's my extra money? And so certainly, I definitely think that if the feds are giving out money, then it needs to be used in a wise manner.
Yeah, I know that was one of the conversations right before school let out, that the union sent out a survey to teachers, and basically, because there is this money available, and the question was, how would we want that money to be spent? And one of the suggestions was something like we come back 2 weeks earlier and sort of do like a boot camp with kids. It was another suggestion, and then the third suggestion was basically just pay teachers more money. And I'm like, just give us more money so that we can put the programs in place. Like, just give us, because like you said, a lot of teachers will jump at an extra $1,500, $2,000 to say, oh, well, I'm gonna teach this after school class for enrichment, or I'm going to pick up an extra class and I'm going to forego my planning period or something of that nature. Teachers will do it, you know. And so I think, I don't want to use the term, because I see people in the chat, not that, the term social promotion has that negative stigma to it. But in this case, it's not so much social promotion. Like I said, it'd be different if the pandemic only happened in California and it only affected students in California, and the rest of the school systems went right on along like they normally did. Then you could isolate it to one area and say, okay, this is what we're going to put in place here. But the fact that this was across the board, everybody was affected. I mean, even if you moved to Canada was affected, So I feel like even though the kids lost a year, they're still at the same place that everybody else is, give or take. Give or take.
Yeah, that's why I say it should just be sweeping across the board.
Yeah.
Let's just be a forgiveness year. Everybody gets the COVID year. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
Now, The only concerns out there are certain grade levels that do concern me. And I think for me, it's third grade, eighth grade, 11th grade. Those grade levels, in some states, 11th grade is the grade level of accountability for high school. Not all, in a lot of states, it's 10th grade, but some states it's 11th.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
say 11th
Great for
grade.
us.
Um, the reason I say 11th grade is 11th grade, outside of just that being a and graduation not promoted, that is the grade level where you have those students that you decide whatever track you're gonna go on. Are you gonna go to college, and are you doing everything in your power to um to booster up your GPA, or you know get all of the coursework that you need to go to college? Or are you saying, listen, I'm just doing what I have to do so I can graduate, learn, get into whatever? Because a lot of states are now doing, if you're not going to be college ready, then you have to be get a vocational
We're losing
certificate
you,
like
LT.
that.
We're losing you. Your pixels are off. Your
You
voice
know,
is off. We're losing
I
you.
need to go out and come back in.
Yeah, go out, turn off your Wi-Fi or something. Yeah, yeah. Okay, he'll be right back, you guys. Y'all know El Teddy got that old janky Wi-Fi, honey. He'll be back. But yeah, I see what you're saying, Lock Queen, adding teachers assistants to classrooms, but that goes into how are you going to spend this money that you were given? How are you going to put this money in place? And so that's one of those questions. That's definitely a option based on what and again the problem falls that, and we've been talking about this from the beginning of the podcast, is school systems are not regulated by the federal government and not by the state. Each school district can do what they choose. They get the money and there's certain criteria, but this money isn't attached to a specific program. This money isn't attached to a specific way this money has to be spent. It is just supposed to be used to help students and how they were affected with COVID. And so it can be used however that particular school district chooses to use the money. And so that's the other frustration, is that there is no one way that this is going to look. Social promotion basically means you were in sixth grade and you sat through the whole sixth grade, and we're gonna push you on to seventh grade whether you learned anything or not. You got all F's all year, didn't learn anything, attendance was horrible, but because it's time for you to go on to the seventh grade, we're gonna put you in the seventh grade. That's a very basic definition. That's much better, sir.
All right. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what was
No
going on.
problem. I was trying to wait for you to finish your point, but it kept getting worse and worse.
Oh, but the point that I was making was it's a lot of storms in the area. So
Oh, okay. You be careful.
the point that I was making was those grades are very critical to a lot of students in terms of the learning curve growth. I know third grade for most states is accountability with regard to elementary. That third grade for a lot of states. Eighth grade is probably the most for middle school. And when you get to high school, 10th grade is in terms of graduation rates and graduation requirements. So 10th grade is the most accountable in terms of what the school wants, but for the student itself, I find students more so. It's that 11th grade year where they are really, really focused. Like 11th grade students are focused. Like you don't go into most 11th grade classes where you have a lot of playing around. Like even the goof offs, by the time they get to 11th grade, everybody bruh, nah, we got stuff to do, because they know your eyes are on the prize now. Whatever it is, you just get this diploma, or are you trying to go and further your education and get a degree? So those things, or even the ones who didn't pass whatever test they had to pass in 10th grade, they know 11th grade, I got to pass it this year, or I might be left behind.
Right.
So that I those three grade levels, I think that we need to be creative in education circles and think about what we're going to do for the students that was their case this past school year. They were in one of those three grade levels.
Right. No, Xavier, contrary to what people seem to think about what No Child Left Behind was about. No Child Left Behind was not necessarily social promotion. No Child Left Behind was the revving up of student testing and benchmarks to make sure that all students were on the same level. It
And
really
this
wasn't
thing,
about
No Child Left Behind stopped a lot of social
right. I was gonna
promotion.
say it's really what. Yeah, a lot of people think because of the title that that's what it was about, but that's not what it was about. No Child Left Behind was the idea that we're going to make sure that all students are on the same level and learning the same things through testing. That's really what that boiled down to. I mean, that's again an oversimplification, but yes, it was not about right. It actually got rid of a lot of social promotion because there was a testing benchmark in place and there was a criteria for, and like El Teddy just said, especially certain grades. There was a lot of benchmark that they had to meet a certain standard at a certain point, a certain grade. And so some grades were, certain things were stressed more than others. I don't know what's going on with you today. It must be the
Am
storms,
I
but
still off?
you back off. But we're gonna let it. It seems like it's coming in and out, so we'll
Yeah, I
roll
don't
with
know
it.
why, because I'm not even on my Wi-Fi right now. Maybe I
Yeah,
should be.
well, it may just be the storms. We'll roll with it. We'll roll
Let
with
me
it.
go. Let me turn on my Wi-Fi. Maybe that'll make it better.
Okay.
But
Uh oh. I think we lost them all together now. Okay. Well, we get ready to transition in a moment. Again, I don't have an article on that, but that was a video. I'll put the video link in the description box. It was a video. Okay, that's you're back.
yeah.
Okay.
I,
So I'll put that video in the description box, you guys. Any final words on whether we should have do-over years or not?
I don't see it happening. Even if we want it to happen, I just can't see it happen. I just do not see a do-over year happening. I just can't. If I was a student, I wouldn't want. I'd be like, no, you're not. No, that means I got to stay here at my mama house.
Right.
No, we're not doing
Right. And even like seniors having that quote unquote gap year. And one of the other things that was in the piece that I looked at is that they were talking about that some people may be using it to take advantage to get an extra year as far as sports and extracurricular activities are concerned. That's something that, they have to make it, look through that. So
especially now with sports on the high on the college level where they're able to get paid, even on the high school level now. So with that whole Supreme Court ruling, yeah, I could see that because they might say, yeah, let me get another year in where I can get more.
yeah, I'm not sure I'm clear on your question, Xavier. You said, so say schools go through the social promotion system. Does that require teachers dumbing down their lesson plans?
I think
Those,
you're confused on what social promotion.
yeah, those two things don't have anything to
Yeah,
do. They're not connected.
yeah. Because social promotion means I had a child that done flunked so many times, and he in my 8th grade class, and he's 16, and my principal come up and say, "Listen, I know y'all been fighting a good fight, but listen, he too old. He's 16 years old, and here with these 13, 12, and 13 year, we're sending him on to high school. He's just too old." And that will happen. You see a lot more social promotion in elementary and middle school than you do in high school. So
All right. So the remainder of this program, ladies and gentlemen, we will be switching over to critical race theory and some of the things going on with that. Like I said, if we're gonna bring it to you whether you like it or not, okay? Because it is here and y'all need to know what it is because it is being used as a buzzword. Now people are just latching onto it and don't even know what it is, what it's about, what it means. But at the end of the day, it will trickle down to you and your students. So let's start. We have a couple of really good articles here. Let's start with this first one that says why the critical race theory fight is harder for educators than the Common Core battle. Now, El Teddy, you are no longer in a public school classroom situation. You're still in education, but you're in adult education at this point. But you were in the classroom with Common Core. So you understand
that good fight.
Right. You understand the Common Core fight and all of that. I'm not going to rehash it, but let's just suffice to say this article talks about how during Common Core, the push for Common Core, there were a lot of PACs, there were a lot of lobbying groups that were behind and supporting supporting the Common Core push. And this article talks, this is from Ed Weekly, and this article talks about how there are even more packs and things of that nature. So as I do, I'm going to read a little bit from this article. Again, I will have the link in the description box, but I'll read a little bit from this article so you guys can kind of understand. Okay. It was a moment when K through 12 education, often ignored on the national level, moved further into the realm of general purpose politics. In the words of one education scholar, even embedding itself in Republican campaign rhetoric. How educators felt and what they did was often left out of the debate. They're talking about Common Core at this time. Now it's critical racist theory's turn. Critical race theory. I added an S in there, sorry. The term itself has been commandeered by conservative critics who've stretched it to cover various ways in which schools address issues like racism and sexism. Angry encounters about the issue, royal school board meetings, district strategic plans, or classroom lessons that deal with race rapidly make the rounds on social media. Political action committees, PACs, in case not sure, opposing critical race theory supersede anti-Common Core PACs of the past years. State lawmakers targeted as part of a sweeping new restriction on teaching diverse concepts. Political actors probe for the best way to leverage the issue with an eye toward looming elections. I'm going to read this last part and then we can discuss. The political playbook might be similar, but the fundamental difference between the two issues also show how the hub of education politics has shifted. Tension about Common Core stemmed largely from disputes about the federal role in schools and how teachers teach math. It represented perhaps the most prominent moment for an education policy community that for decades had focused on standards, accountability, and assessments, but it didn't touch on profound division over American history and identity. And then it goes on to just speak about how critical race theory gets into race more so than about testing and benchmarks and things like that. LT, are you there? Did I lose you again?
Oh, I'm here. Oh, I
Okay.
am here.
Oh. So let's be clear. What this all
Well,
boils down to. Go ahead, LT. Go ahead.
because I do think it's important for people in the comments to understand a little bit the difference between what happened with Common Core
Okay.
and what happened with critical race theory. Believe it or not, at the end, well, not the end of Common Core, but today's dissent or people who have issues with Common Core are the very same people who pushed Common Core in the beginning. Before Common Core came along, PACs and a lot of Republican-led state legislatures were the ones who pushed Common Core. And a lot of those Republican states were a part of those initial consortiums and colloquiums that they were having that put together the Common Core system. And it was supposed to be this swooping, and it was Republican led. What happened was when it rolled out and they saw that, so I don't like that this blue state has the same set of margins as my red state. And so I don't want to have the same thing that they have. I need to have my own. Otherwise, it doesn't help my political ideology that the Fed should not be that involved in education. So what they did was they started to change it up when they really didn't change. They changed one or two words, an A to an and or the or something like that, and then called it their own thing. So that's how that, mind you, K through 12 teachers really were not consulted a whole lot on it. It mainly was post-secondary and the business world. Those who, both of whom have an axe to grind, both of whom had an axe to grind, and both who are very involved with politics and so forth. So that's what Common Core was, and a lot of teachers gave a lot of pushback on it because they were like, this doesn't work and doesn't relate necessarily in practice in the K through 12 environment. So that was Common Core. Now with critical race theory is, here's the problem with critical race theory. The people descended from the Caucasus Mountains are upset because it doesn't involve them and it puts them in a negative light. They once the only commonality is they still ain't trying to consult us K through 12 people on it at all. And let's be clear, what critical race theory actually is something we've talked about this that really isn't taught in K through 12. They want to throw that term out to make it mean anything that teaches what America really did. And they want to be able to have a way and have a reason to lie about they're going to do to black people what they did to the Native Americans. That is exactly what's going to happen when the history books are written, and there are already some written down. The story of slavery and what happened to black people is going to be washed all the way over, and you're going to start to have our story look like the story of the Native American, where the Native American were these savages that were saved by the Great White Hope, and they needed us to come and take this country, and that's what it's going to say about black people. Like we volunteered to come over here. Okay,
Right.
all right, I'm going on the record. Go ahead, really, because you know how I can get with critical race theory, and I don't want to take over.
Um, but I mean, I pretty much am on the same page with you. The reality of the situation is um, people have hijacked the term, and then now it's being used as a scare tactic. And um, my biggest concern is that I'm hearing critical race theory being just thrown around. Everything becomes, like you said, El Teddy, everything becomes critical race theory, and it's just not. It's just not. And at the end of the day, and again, we have a couple of more articles to get to, but at the end of the day, you know what's important to what's important to pull out of that article is understanding whenever you hear the word PAC, Political Action Committee, just put an equal sign, dollar sign. A PAC equals money. So what they're saying to you is and for those of us who were in education or around education during that time about 5 or 6 years ago when Common Core was like, it was a political buzzword. If you guys remember when Barack Obama debated John McCain, both of them evoked Common Core. Both of them talked about Michelle Reed, which y'all know I ain't gonna go down that rabbit hole today. But that is what all of that was about. And so to say that the critical race theory issue has more PACs behind it and more money behind it, that's a scary thought. And it's important that y'all understand this is not going away. This is not in a silo. Now we're going to just get to a couple of more articles because again, yeah.
Get my
Let's talk about this one.
levels in order. Go ahead, read the next article because I feel a sugar spike coming.
Okay, go on and get you. Yeah, go on and balance it out. Well, maybe I shouldn't do this article yet. Then maybe I should wait till you balance it out. You ready?
Go ahead. This is sweet Kool-Aid in here.
Okay.
Pour a bunch of sugar in that. That's
Okay. White fragility strikes back. This is from theroot.com. West Virginia school pauses Black Math Genius program because white people felt it was critical race theory. So again, here is an example of what I'm talking about. Everything dealing with something black becomes critical race theory. The word black is now synonymous with critical race theory for white people across the nation. A West Virginia school has passed a program called Black Math Genius because white parents felt, pause the program, because white parents felt it somehow represented CRT. On June 28th, Jefferson County regular meeting was the site for an outpouring of white feelings over math, of all things. As you can see, we're divided. If you give special privileges to a group of people because of their skin color, it's discrimination, one woman said at the meeting. What is sad is that I literally knew nothing about this program before writing this, and within 5 minutes, I clearly know more than old girl who made the comment. The program isn't exclusively to Black students. White students can apply as well. Of the 60 students who initially registered for the program, 2 of them were white. That fact didn't stop parents from using words like racist and segregationist to describe math. Interestingly, one parent seemed to be offended at the basic concept of summer school. My questions are, why do we need a summer math program, and why aren't the children learning during the school year? Yeah, I'm going to stop there. Hold on. It's tragic to me. No, I'm gonna go to this one. Here's the last paragraph. Y'all, again, I'll give y'all the link. Y'all can go read the whole thing. Across the country, county and school board meetings have been the site of white people losing their quote unquote shit. This is directly from the article. Over race potentially being taught honestly in schools. This week, the nation's second largest teachers union said it would defend any teacher who faces backlash for teaching honest history. At this rate, they're going to have to start defending math teachers too. That and it's funny because that's the next article we're going to read about teachers unions and critical race theory. But El Taddy.
Now, here's my thing. You're talking to someone who not only has um, worked in advanced academics. I've taught advanced academics to teachers. So I've taught, instructors how to do that. But I have actually did a lot of workshops on advanced academics specifically for students of color and Black students, because so many school districts have that, especially in some predominantly white areas where there aren't a large population of not Black people, but Black teachers. What ends up happening is those students that come out of elementary school that look to be gifted, look to have good IQ scores, somewhere around secondary education, those students get lost and the learning curve passes them, because there are some differences in Black students and white students. It's cultural. Some of it is involved in the fabric of how this country has treated Black people. Let's just be clear. And so in order for there to be equity, true equity, we have to meet students where they are. And that's the whole basis of instruction. How much are we taught differentiated instruction?
You better listen.
You got
Hammered in my
parents
head.
over here losing their goddamn minds because we are trying to differentiate instruction, and because they have no idea what that means and no idea what equity in education really looks like. They're over here blathering about at school board meetings, losing their minds. They're so uneducated that they just fart out words like, oh, I'm just going to say this is critical race theory, so as to get more eyes and ears on what I'm saying to help, booster my thought process. But so many times there are, how should I put it? There are programs that are for white students only. Sure, they know they can't get away with putting, oh, white only ... But let's be clear, the standards and the when you look up the makeup of those programs and the standard by which they allow people in that program, it's very clear. Very clear. But this wasn't even a program that they were trying to have over the course of a whole school year. This was a summer program which was designed to meet the needs of high-level math students, Black and students of color. And it was for all students. If they wanted to sign up for it, they could have. But it was to meet their needs, because sometimes, and I talk about this when I teach advanced academics, you could be in an advanced class or an honors class or an AP class and still feel like, well, because my teacher got to dumb it down for the rest of these people that can't compete, I'm sitting over there twiddling my fingers because I'm so much better and higher than them. And so you have programs like this so that the learning curve does not pass them, so you can continue to edify them and keep them excited about that subject matter and that area. Certainly, we're trying to get more Black students in the realm of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And any program that we have to foster that and to keep students motivated in those areas, we need it. We need it. And the fact that you have parents out here saying, oh, well, I got a problem with it, this is obviously critical race theory. What? That's as asinine as them coming out and saying that, by them teaching math, they're teaching them English. Like, that sounds real awkward for me to say that, right? That's how awkward it is for them to say this is critical race theory. It makes no sense. And it once again shows the hypocrisy and the white supremacy that permeates through this country. And the fact that, like really be said, you got so much money and so many people behind this, this is not getting better anytime soon. And here's the other problem that I have with the PACs, and we'll get to this in the next article. What my fear is, so much money is funneled into teachers' unions from certain PACs that there's going to start to be, those PACs are going to start to flex and say, nah, you taking our money, we need you to do what we need you to do. Is you need to go tell your teachers to stand down, or you need to tell your teachers they're just going to have to eat this one. That is where my fear goes, because that's the next wave. That's what they're going to start to do next. They're going to start to chip away at the teachers' unions. Randy Weingarten and all of them. I want to see what they're doing. And your boy Cardona done been real quiet over there.
Not my boy. He wasn't my choice.
You know, we talked about him from the beginning.
Yeah.
We talked about him from the very beginning.
So my 2 cents on this whole conversation is, it's the ignorance for me. It's the ignorance for me. The fact that you stand your tail, and I've seen, and El Teddy, you've seen it, I've seen it, and I know you guys have seen it too, these clips from these school board meetings across the country. El Teddy played a clip a week or so ago on his channel on the policies of it all, of a little girl who clearly had been coached. And I just, it's the ignorance, because see, ignorance is a scary thing. When we look at these Trump supporters and we hear the crazy stuff that comes out of their mouth, yeah, on one hand, it's crazy and we laugh, but it's scary to hear it because they really believe it. For these people to stand up and to even get to the point where they mad about summer school. And let's be clear. And again, the thing about education is that you have to be, and that's why even though the program was called Black Magic Math, whatever it was, even though it was called that, it still had to be offered and open to everybody, because you can't. We talked about Title IX, right? So here's the thing. In that school district in West Virginia, which West Virginia, I think, is probably the lowest. I think when you rank the school districts, West Virginia is probably in the bottom 5, not percentile, but bottom 5, maybe even bottom 3 school districts in the country. So let's be clear. Everybody over there is in trouble. White, black, indifferent. All them kids is in trouble, right? In order for them to have a program that they even label black ... that means that they have the numbers, they have the demographics to back up that these kids, like you said, El Teddy, these kids have been identified. There's a criteria there. The fact that you mad, I just can't wrap just the ignorance of it.
No, I'm gonna tell you what it is. They mad because their child probably didn't qualify for it because they didn't have the prerequisites. Because
but I'll tell you what. But the thing is this. That I would even be like, oh, okay, you mad because your child didn't make it. No, they mad at the name. They're mad at the word black. It's just, that's it. They stopped at black. That's it. They ain't hear nothing else. And then they immediately went to, oh, this is critical race theory. No, it's not.
It's nothing to do with this. It's idiotic. Everything is not critical race theory. I would venture to tell you 99.9% of stuff that goes on in K through 12 coursework isn't critical race theory.
Oh, God. All right. Let's get to this next article. That's what El Teddy was speaking on, referencing one of the nation's, and this is from The Root as well, one of the nation's largest teachers unions pledges to defend those who teach honest history as parents and politicians continue to lose their minds over critical race theory. I'm going to read a little bit of this article, and then I'm going to speak from the perspective of somebody who worked for this specific teachers union, and then we'll go there. Randy Weingarten, president, and I worked for Randy Weingarten. Let me just say that. President of the American Federation of Teachers, gave a speech during a virtual conference on Tuesday, pledging their support for teachers who face backlash for teaching about race. Mark my words, our union would defend any member who gets in trouble for teaching honest history. She told members, teaching the truth is not radical or wrong. I'm gonna just skip through a little bit. A group of parents in Tennessee school district are only proving Weingarten's point. A group of parents and local advocacy groups are up in arms over wit and wisdom and English language arts curriculum potentially being taught in schools. Their beef is that books like Ruby Bridges Goes to School and Separate is Never Equal are included in the curriculum. So we mad about Ruby Bridges now? Okay. Wait a minute, hold on. It was they said Ruby Bridges Goes to School was particularly problematic because the large crowd of angry white people who didn't want black children in a white school too harshly delineated between black and white people that the book didn't offer redemption at the end. So either these parents are, this is the root, y'all. So either these parents are old as or they straight up didn't pay attention when we were in school. I was taught the story of Ruby Bridges when I was in elementary school. We were shown Roots in the 5th grade. This ain't nothing new, just further proves it says there's nothing but a bunch of reactionary dumbasses who believe anything Facebook tells them. And what redemption are we talking about? We just had a white nationalist president and y'all want to talk about redemption? I find it deeply ironic. This is from the root, y'all. I find it deeply ironic that the same white folks who love to talk about how the youth are too sensitive and how black people have a victim mentality are the epitome of, I'm going to skip that word, when it comes to being truthful about history. If they ain't the pot calling the kettle, I'm going to say black. Y'all can go read the real article. I'm censoring, okay?
Y'all know the root don't mind. The root do not mind.
Yeah, the root don't care. And I'm here for it. Listen. I'm here for it, but I'm just saying for the purposes of this program, I'm going to censor it. But I will definitely give y'all the link and y'all can go read exactly what she said. Or I'm sorry, I didn't even look at the byline. What this writer said. Let me say this. As someone who worked for the union, let me explain to y'all how this all works down, how it trickles down. What you said, Randy, it sounds good. And it makes for a nice, quote. It makes for a nice soundbite. But let me explain to y'all how this whole thing works. The AFT is the parent. Think of it like this. The AFT is a parent company for every union that is under them. We pay dues to the AFT. Now, if you get in trouble as a teacher, your local union handles that. The only way the AFT would get involved in that type of an issue is if they feel that they can turn it into a moment for them. So let's say L. Teddy gets in trouble for teaching Ruby Bridges Goes to School, right? He was told, this is critical race theory. We don't want you mentioning it, right? Let's say he found an article on Ruby Bridges. He teaches it in his classroom, language, art, history, doesn't matter at this point. And a parent complains and it goes up the chain of command. The only way that the AFT Randy Weingarten level would get involved is if they feel like they can make L. Teddy the poster child for critical race theory and the persecution of teachers. Because other than that, it is going to be handled on the local level financially. The only way that there have been situations when I worked at the AFT, worked for the Washington Teachers Union, where the AFT did get involved. Where they would send a spokesperson down to deal with certain issues when we had certain things happening. But certainly the way she's making it seem like they're going to come down on their white horses and come save the day, that is not how this works. It sounds good, but I promise you, I have worked for the union. And I worked for the union at the height of Common Core and that whole fight. So I'm telling you what I know. Okay, it has to go. There are so many levels of escalation that a case has to go to before Ronnie Weingarten even knows what's going on. Now I'm gonna stop and I'll let you speak to it,
Elsie. Randy, go sit down somewhere, Randy. Please just go sit down somewhere.
Sit down.
Just go sit down. You just want to sound good because you know there's going to be a whole lot of pushback
Mm-hmm.
for members who are paying AFT. And you know what she's trying to save? She's trying to save her job, and she's trying to save those dues that are coming in to the AFT, because they know teachers are about to go in here and they about to start to have some pushback and say, so y'all want me to pay y'all dues, but y'all not over here trying to fight for me because I ain't trying to do nothing but teach the real thing. And let's be clear, this is not going to come out popular, but let me tell you what critical race theory is going to come down to, especially because it involves education. It's going to come down to Karen versus Karen. It's going to come down to the Karen versus the Karen, because now you have those Karens that are so right wing, way off the deep end Republicans that are going to be fighting with the other Karens that are way off the deep end progressive. And what the and this is for and I didn't even know I was gonna go down this road, but this is my thought on it. Because dealing with Randy Weingart and what she's talking about, there's no way, shape, form, or fashion any of that's gonna happen. So I ain't even worried about that.
Listen, I'm
But
telling you what I know.
when we start to talk about critical race theory, or what it really is, the attack on being black and the attack on anything that deals with supporting black people, teaching black student or teaching students, period, black, white, blue, or purple. What happened to black people? There is an attack on anything. The fact that we had a black president, the fact that Black Lives Matter happened last summer, the fact that a lot of states that have been traditionally conservative and anti-black are now having black people in positions of power. There is a reckoning that is now happening in this country. And I'm saying this for a certain reason. Just like I said that black people are going to have to look at the history of Native Americans and see what happened to them, and to see what white people are trying to do. I need white women, I need the Karens of the world to know why they get to be Karens today. Because if you study the history of women's suffrage and the history of the women's movement, those first women that fought for women's rights were abolitionists. They fought hard for the freedom of the slaves. Look at the Grimke sisters. Look at Susan B. Anthony and all of those women back then. They fought hard for the abolishment of slavery. Why? Because they knew it's no way we're going to get rights if you still have whole segments of the population that don't have rights. And if you think that white men are just going to say, we're just going to do away with the blacks, and you don't think they're not going to do the same thing for women? Just like they want to take blacks back to slavery, they certainly want to take some women back to not being able to vote too. And so what they need to understand is, when you're fighting so hard to stop one group of people, it's going to come back around to you. Because remember, they ain't like you either. And you had to fight to get right. Black men had the right to vote before white women. So but Randy Weingart, here's what's going to happen with Randy. Like I said earlier, the politicians don't go come down the pipe, and because there are some Dems, there are some quote unquote liberals who fight just as vehemently against what they believe to be critical race theory as some of the conservatives. And they're going to start to flex on some of these, especially on the local level. The local level, they can flex real hard because they can say, wait, you doing what? No, you ain't doing that. You ain't doing that. You ain't doing that. Not on no local level. We'll let them fight that in Washington. But down here in this good school district right here, we're not having it. And there are not a lot of strong teachers unions. Even some of the strongest teachers unions, there's still a limit to what they can and cannot do. And you please believe those politicians, as their constituents who may be white and may be racist and bigoted, start to come out and say, I'm not voting for you unless you oppose this critical race theory, then that's where you're going to start to get pressure. And that's where they're going to put pressure on teachers union. And that's where you're going to see less unions fighting on behalf of teachers that come under flack for this. This is all posturing by Randy White. She trying to keep her job, and she trying to keep money coming into the coffers of the AFT. I'm surprised. What's my girl from the NEA? Because the two biggest ones are AFT and the NEA.
NEA. Yeah.
I got over the NEA. It'll come to me, but that's what this is. It's posturing.
Let me say this. I just want to clear this up before we move on. You're absolutely correct that the earliest suffragists were abolitionists until they weren't going to get the right to vote. Even in the midst of them, having all this compassion, when it looked like women weren't going to be included in the 13th Amendment, then
Karen became Karen.
Absolutely. Susan B. Anthony was very much, y'all can look it up, go find them quotes. She had some not so nice things to say about the newly freed slaves getting the right to vote before her. She had a problem with it, especially the men. So yeah, they were all here for it when it looked like they were gonna get what they wanted. But the minute, like you said, Congress wasn't ready. They were like, listen, we can do one or the other, but we damn sure ain't doing both. And the fact that they were willing to give the black man the right to vote before a white woman, that should let y'all know something. Because to be clear, they advocated and they lobbied to be included in that amendment. And you can look at the language and see it was very specific. Freed black men.
It's and that's why the Karens of the world over here arguing like it can't happen to them. Hey, boo, you need to go pick the history book. But y'all asking me to ask people that don't know the difference between a math class and critical race theory to know history. People trying to change history. Why would I think they know history if they're trying to write their own history? But that's
honey. Well, I saved this article for last because it gives us a little bit of hope. Just a little twinge, little tinkle, little geek. If you turn your head to the side and squint real tight, you might see it. This article, again, the root.
The root is through today.
Listen, right. Now the root, this is Ohio private school refuses to let students re-enroll after mother denounced school in an anti-critical race theory campaign. So conservatives are still pretending they actually know anything about white people's latest propaganda target critical race theory. And now it has caused students to lose their spot at a private school in Ohio. I think this is Gahanna, Ohio. After two mothers violated its enrollment agreement by going on a right-wing podcast to complain about the school's teaching of racism. According to the Columbus Dispatch, the Columbus Academy mothers told Andrea Gross and Amy Gonzalez that their expelled children would not be permitted to re-enroll this school year, citing a campaign of false and misleading attacks on the school and dual engaged when they went on a white fragility, tour, blasting the academic study conservatives are now using as an umbrella term for all things race related. I want to try to find. I'm gonna try to find the quote. Gonzalez compared the situation to the Bolsheviks, and Gross agreed with a host calling the school's leader a dictator who needed to be defended. The thing about private school that y'all people want to forget is they're not a public school and they don't have to let your child be there. And if they feel like you have violated whatever policies they put in place, they have a right to say your child is now persona non grata. Let me read this last little part and then we'll move on. I feel like it is unfortunate that when you are speaking out and you're trying to say your truth, unfortunately, there are people who want to retaliate against you. In this case, they retaliated against our children who are innocent. We tried in the best way possible to represent and speak up not only for our children, but also for our teachers. At a private school, they do not have a union. I believe a lot of it's coming from the National Association of Independent Schools. I mean, okay, I'll leave it at that. Elton?
White woman Go sit down somewhere. Go sit down somewhere. I, you're
I
representing.
mean, listen, we say it all the time. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence. Go on
I
and
don't
say
think
whatever you
this.
want to
I
say.
wish public schools could do this because what you don't want is you don't need those kind of parents because those are the ones who are at the school board meeting. Because trust me, when her child goes to this public school system, she gonna have her name written on the agenda for every school board meeting imaginable to be screaming from the rooftops critical race theory. She gonna have her daughter. She gonna teach her daughter all about her weapon of choice, white woman tears, so she can
Hmm.
go up there and start crying and talking about how horrible it is and everything. I'm not here for her. Get her out of here. I'm so glad they ousted her. I'm so glad they ousted her. Oh, I'm speaking for the teachers. What teachers?
You ain't speaking for me, man.
That's why I say this stuff is getting worse, not better. These people are losing their collective minds. Do you hear me? White people refuse to let go any amount of supremacy. They forget that it's 2021 and not 1821. And you're not going to beat us down. And we're not going to sit up here and take it. We are not.
Yeah.
Ain't no yes, master. No.
So I feel like that couldn't have happened to a nicer woman. Don't know her, but I'm sure she deserved for her child to not be in that building and for you to be at every PTA meeting for the next school year, spewing your hate and
Mm.
calling for the communist Bolshevik revolution.
Like, where did that come from? Like,
Like,
this is
what?
for real. It's so funny because they do this. They throw out all of these historic, horrible occurrences because they don't know history and they're trying to rewrite history. So why would I expect them to be accurate in their retelling of history? Why? Why?
It's like what?
Oh my God, this is so serious. You got kicked out. Listen, I would go if I was one of the other parents at that school. I'd go on my Facebook. Oh, your child got kicked out. Wouldn't even say who I'm talking about. Just put that as my post. Oh, your child got kicked out just to be petty.
Because you
Every,
petty like that.
right, every field trip we go on, my child who does still attend such and such school will be going to such and such today. Tag her in it. My child, who still attends such and such school, has the first day of school today. Ain't she cute?
You so petty. You so petty.
Oh man. I'm going to pick up my child who works at such and such school today. Are you going to pick up your child from there and tag her? Just to be petty. Just to be petty. You know what her next thing is to figure out how many black and Hispanic students attend that school and start to come after them. Well, you let them stay and they did that because that's what they like to do. They like to do the comparison. Oh, but you kicking me out. But what about such and such who did dot? You letting them stay. Girls, what we're doing is letting you stay out.
I
That's what
about to
we're
say,
doing.
you know that. Well, you know that's what's coming. You know
Hmm.
that's what's coming.
She gonna go to the board. She gonna go to everybody she can, to the trustees or whatever they have for that private school. A mess. A mess.
Anyway, well, it has been an hour. I feel like we've given you guys a lot of information to take and read up on it, study it, pass it on, share us, like us, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend.
We do need
Um,
to find out what the Secretary of Education actually is doing because I don't know.
we'll
We
look
need,
that up for next time because
to
I do think that's
figure out.
valid. I think that's a valid
We
conversation
need
to
to
have.
figure out, well, what are you doing, sir? Since you ain't out here doing that, what are you doing? Let me go look. Look, yeah, we're gonna go look that up.
And with that being said, I give you the last word, Doctor.
Um, I'm so glad that you're back and we can talk education and have a good time
Yes.
and stuff. You know, I love these conversations and stuff. So, Y'all know we love bringing this stuff to y'all, you know. But we'll be here fighting a good fight about this, and everything, and trying to edify y'all to make sure y'all know what the real is and stuff like that. That's all I got. I ain't got nothing else. So glad to be here.
Thank you. And with that being said, we thank you for being here, and we will catch y'all on the next appointed time. And we are out. As soon as I find the button.